On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we have your Giants stock report following the Giants preseason game number 2, plus a list of ongoing concerns as the Giants 2024 training camp and preseason wind down. That's coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI. Find my written work over there at NewYorkGiantsOnSI.com. And as always, welcome in to my Blue Crew community members, to my everydayers, to my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. It is appreciated. And if you are watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Click the bell to receive notifications every time I post a new video. And if you wouldn't mind, like the video. It all helps in the long run. So thank you again. On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we've got a stock report. The Giants with 2 preseason games in the books, 1 more week left of training camp. So we've got a stock report for you. I'm going to do stock up for the first segment, stock down for the second one. And then in segment 3, I'm going to talk about some concerns that I still have about this team. And, it's not a whole lot, but there's enough to where I still don't know how this is going to play out, and how it plays out could potentially affect how the Giants do in 2024. So that is our agenda for today. Again, welcome on in. Let's get right into it. All right, let's start off with the stock up. And the good news is I have more stock up than I do stock down. But the guys that stood out to me, and not just from their performance in the game against the Texans, but just all summer long. These are guys who have really stood out, who I think have helped their case for a roster spot and or a role on offense or defense. And we've got to start off with receiver Darius Slayton, who went 3 of 3 in the passing game yesterday, caught all 3 of his targets, had the big 44-yard reception. Look, Darius Slayton, this is a guy who every time I turn around, some national media site is saying that he should be the guy who we traded. The Giants are going to cut him. He's a surprise cut. I really don't understand why Slayton doesn't get a little bit more love. All right. Now, I get it. He's in the last year of his contract. Probably will not be back with the team next year, I would think. But this guy has proven time and time again how valuable he is to this offense. He has proven that he has the best connection with Daniel Jones. Remember, the 2 of them came in together in 2019. They're amongst the longest tenured players on this team. Slayton, no, he's not Malik Neighbors, but you know what? He's a fine number 2 receiving option. And he's going to get his targets this year. He's going to get his opportunities. And I just don't understand why so many people still want to run him off this team, still want to trade him or move him for a draft pick. And I just don't think the Giants are going to do that. I mean, if you're going to look to trade a receiver, maybe you look to trade Isaiah Hodgins, who is not making this team, who is, a solid run blocking receiver, and who, isn't too bad as a receiver. So, if you're going to look to trade one of the abundance receivers that the Giants have, to me, Hodgins makes more sense over Slayton. Okay, next guy with a stock up, Elijah Chapman. All right, can we all agree that this young man's going to make the roster? This is the guy who initially, way back in the spring when they had the rookie minicamp, he wasn't even an undrafted free agent signed. He came in as a tryout, and he just really impress defensive line coaches Andre Patterson and Brian Cox to where they went and they offered him an undrafted free agent contract. And, initially you thought, okay, maybe he's going to be camp fodder, because of his size, can he hold up? Folks, he can hold up. All right. So what did this young man do besides the fact that he chased down a ball carrier against the Houston Texans? I mean, an amazing run. This guy also drew two penalties, both holding calls. He played, he helped collapse the pocket. Yeah, he might not be ideally, the ideal height and size that you want for an interior defensive lineman, but this guy's play strength is off the charts. This guy's heart is off the charts. And, sometimes you just got to say, you know what? I know what the metrics say. I know a interior defensive lineman should be, this tall and this heavy. But look, if somebody smaller can play and play at a decent enough level, then throw all that out. Why would you toss out the guy just because, he's not big enough, because he's not heavy enough? If he's making plays, if he's affecting the game in your favor, then you keep him. It's that simple. And I think Elijah Chapman has made this roster. I'd be stunned if he doesn't make this roster. If he hits waivers, I could see somebody else maybe picking him up. Okay, another guy whose stock is up, obviously Malik Neighbors. All right, Malik Neighbors all summer long has come as advertised. Just a really, really good receiver. We've seen him get behind the defense. We've seen him make some nice catches. But what I really liked about Malik Neighbors' game against the Texans, which, by the way, those were his first receptions. He didn't have any against the Lions. What I liked is how he adjusted. So you look at the first play, the first target that he had, and he tried to reel it in with one hand, and he dropped it. All right. The next time the ball was thrown to him, instead of trying to be all fancy and show off and everything, he made sure to get two hands on the ball. So I think one of the many things you got to like about Malik Neighbors is that when he makes a mistake, you don't see that same mistake made again. And that's the sign of a mature rookie. And, again, you see the speed, you see the quickness, you see the play strength in his game, you see the precision in his route running, the fact that he's not, a ham, if you will, a show off, a guy who's all about the one-handed spectacular highlight reel catches. That to me is a good sign for this young man. It shows maturity. And I'm just really excited to see what he does moving forward. All right, another stock up. Benton Whitley, outside linebacker. Now, Benton Whitley, granted, it's with the 2s and the 3s, but this guy has 4 quarterbacks pressures against the Texans. He has 8 on the summer, which I think leads all the defensive or the outside linebackers. He has no missed tackles, which has been pretty good. And you know what? Look, you look at that last outside linebacker spot, which is, Tamon Fox, Azeez Ojulari, they're competing for it. Benton Whitley is making a case for that spot. Now, I think at the end of the day, you're probably going to see Ojulari get that last spot. But I'll tell you what, Ojulari, I watch him and he just gets pushed around in run defense. I mean, if you want to pick up yardage, run right at him because he's just been so easy to move out of the way. Whitley, not so much so. But I just have a feeling that the coaches are going to go more with Ojulari than they are with Whitley because, Ojulari, even though they say it doesn't matter how you came to the team, he's a second-round draft pick. Whereas Whitley is the guy that they picked off of, I think it was the Vikings practice squad a couple of years ago. But I got to say, Whitley has made a pretty strong case to make the roster. And then last but not least, folks, I got to give kudos to the offensive line. I've been talking about Carmen Brasillo and how I was very optimistic that he would get this group and get them right. And based on what we've seen so far through 2 games, he's done that. The offensive line, the pass blocking was really good. I mean, I'm watching this game and I'm saying to myself, my goodness, is that a pocket I see? A clean pocket? I mean, when was the last time we saw so many clean pockets for the quarterback? So just they did a really nice job, I thought, with the pass blocking. The run blocking, not so much so, which I'll kind of talk about in the next segment. But just overall, considering that they were still missing John Runyon Jr. from that starting group, I thought the whole group looked pretty good. And I especially thought that Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor both had solid games. And oh, by the way, did anybody catch how the offensive line actually picked up a stunt? I was like floored. I was like, oh my gosh, when was the last time we saw the offensive line pick up a stunt? Been a while. So yeah, the offensive line under Carmen Priscillo, it's not perfect, but it's headed in the right direction. So that gives us hope, reason to hope moving forward. All right, coming up next, stock down. Who do I have on my list? You could probably guess it, but we'll go over it anyway, so don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So go on and keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And before we get into stock down, let me just run down the schedule for you this week. The Giants are off on Monday, so I don't know that we'll have a show for you for Tuesday, but they are back to practice on Tuesday. It'll be a shorts and shells affair. Then on Wednesday, they have the joint practice with the Jets. That's going to be later in the afternoon. So I believe that practice is going to run from 1 to 3, if I'm not mistaken. That's at Florham Park. So as soon as that practice is over and I can beat the rush hour traffic coming out of that area, which I hear is a nightmare, as soon as I can get home, I will have a podcast for you reporting on that. Thursday, they have a light practice. Friday is a walkthrough. Saturday is the game. So, basically, as long as there's activity going on this week, this being the last week of training camp, I'll have a show for you as always. So hope you will tune in. And again, thank you for being with me. All right, let's get to the stock down. Don't have a whole lot on here. And I think a lot of you are going to be surprised by who I don't have on this list, but I'll get to that in a moment. And I'll tell you why I don't have this person on my list. But let's get to those who I do have on the list. Got to start with inside linebacker Darian Beavers. Now, Darian Beavers, when he was a rookie, he looked like he was going to be something special, a downhill thumper, a 2-down linebacker. Then he ripped up his knee. Last year, he spent basically the whole season on the practice squad while he was working his way back. I don't know that he's all the way back to where he was pre-injury. I saw, a few missed tackles, and Pro Football Focus actually had him with 3 missed tackles. And I just thought, he was playing slower out there. So, look, the inside linebacker position right now, if I had to take a guess on the depth, I think you go with Okereke, you go with Micah McFadden, you go with Isaiah Simmons and Darius Mawaso. I think those are your 4. Now, do you keep a 5th guy? That I don't know. And if you do, maybe you keep Matthew Adams for special teams. I just have a feeling that, Darian Beavers is going to be on the outside looking in, just hasn't really popped the way he did as a rookie. And it's a shame, because injuries, they're terrible. They're terrible to deal with. They can change a guy and how they, are able to perform. But let's hope that Darian Beavers at least finishes on a strong note. All right. I mentioned the offensive line run blocking. The Giants running backs averaged 3.4 yards by the end of the game, which is not very good. At halftime, they had averaged 3.1 yards per carry. All right. That was behind the starting offensive line. So it got a little better once the subs started coming in, but not that much better. The run blocking just not very good. And what's interesting here is, the Giants, they've been leaning on Chris Manhertz, who's a blocking tight end. They brought in Jacob Johnson as a tight end slash fullback to help with that. And still the run blocking just, left something to be desired. So let's hope that improves next week in the finale against the Jets. I had Marcus McKeithen, offensive lineman, as being a stock down. Now, McKeithen, a couple of years ago, was a 6th-round draft pick, looked promising. Then he got hurt. I think he had the ACL, I want to say. He came back last year after being on PUP for half of summer, and then they threw him right into the mix, and he never really developed. And the problem with Marcus McKeithen is just a lack of urgency in his game, a lack of play strength. You watch him, he's moving in slow motion. He's not really hitting anybody. He's just getting in the way of guys. And just, you sit there and you say, look, this guy is going to probably not make the roster, which is a shame because, he's got guard tackle flexibility. And the Giants really, who's going to be their swing tackle? At this point, ain't going to be McKeithen. Now, might it be Joshua Azudu? Possibly. Will it be Evan Neal? Most likely. I mean, if Evan Neal doesn't get back in the starting lineup, which I don't see it happening unless there's an injury. So yeah, I think McKeithen's going to be on the outside looking in. All right, I'll give you one more, and it's not who you think. I know you're all waiting for me to mention a certain quarterback, but he's not on this list, and I'll tell you why next segment, I promise. But I also had DJ Davidson on the stock down report. All right, DJ Davidson got snaps at nose tackle. Now, for what it's worth, you've got Dexter Lawrence as the starting nose tackle. Jordan Riley's going to be the backup. DJ Davidson, I don't know what his role is on this team. I mean, I don't know if there is a role or one thing that he does particularly well. I mean, he's got pass rushing moves and he's a big guy. He can collapse the pocket, but the mental errors, he had the offside penalty, which if you're lining up right over the center, there's just no excuse for you to be offside. All right. Cause you're basically over the ball. He had roughing the passer after he had successfully collapsed the pocket on a stunt. I mean, you just can't have that. And I just don't see this guy, having done enough to make this roster. I mean, maybe he lands on the practice squad, but this is another draft pick, a former draft pick, I should say, that just I don't see making this roster. I'd be surprised. I really would. All right. Now, you're probably wondering, where is Daniel Jones fit in on my stock report? He actually is on the next list that I have, which is ongoing concerns. And I'm going to talk about that with you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and this segment, we're going to talk about concerns. And you're probably saying to yourself, okay, Pat, where does Daniel Jones fit into this? You've got to have him somewhere on your list. You didn't have him on stock up. You didn't have him on stock down. All right, let me start with Daniel Jones because he is a concern. Now, why didn't I have him on my stock up or stock down? Started off rocky, and then he got a little bit better as the game went on. So I really didn't feel like I could shoehorn him in to stock up or stock down. I know some of you are going to disagree with that and say he deserved a spot on stock down, but I don't think he did. That being said, why is he on my list of concerns? Because look, you look at his post-snap decision making, and I've been talking about this now for I don't know how long. His post-snap decision making still leaves a lot to be desired. And I heard people and read on Twitter and social media, oh, he's just rusty. It'll all work out. Please spare me, guys. All right. Here's the thing. Quarterbacks watch a lot of film. All right. They do a lot of preparation. They go through any number of scenarios before a game. If you're not making the right decisions, there's something either in your preparation or you're overthinking things when you're out there. And we saw it with Daniel Jones, and this has been an Achilles heel of his for I don't know how long. Daniel Jones, when stuff breaks down around him, he feels like he's got to do something, like he's got to be Superman and make the play. And you look at his interception, the pick six that he threw, that was a perfect example. The play broke down around him. He was desperate to make a play. And what does he do? He rushes it and he makes a mistake. And it's a whopper of a mistake. That's post-snap decision making. All right. At that point, you say to yourself, okay, you know what? I've got pressure, nobody's open. I'm just going to throw the ball away. But no, he tries to make a play. Now, some of you will say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, when you throw a pick six, I mean, that speaks for itself, right? So Daniel Jones, to me, his issues aren't necessarily all rust related. All right. He has taken every single team rep in training camp. All right. If he hasn't shaken off the rust by now, then I don't know when he's going to. But the post-snap decision-making, which has been going on since his rookie year, you can go back over history and you can find instances where he's made these decisions that just leave you saying, what the heck is he doing? This is ongoing, folks. And that to me is still a very, very big concern. Because even Brian Dable was like, look, we can't have that. Now it's preseason, it doesn't count. But at some point you got to say, look, you got to get those out of your game. Now, that's not to say that he has to play perfectly every game. I mean, even Patrick Mahomes once in a while will make a mistake, but not every week, not every game. So with Daniel Jones, you just want to see consistency in the decision making. He had clean pockets for most of the night. There was absolutely no reason in my mind for him to hesitate on throwing balls or try to fit them into windows that really weren't there. And that's my biggest gripe about his game. Not that he can't throw the ball, not that he can't run the ball, but what is he looking at? And is he second guessing himself, or is he overthinking what he is seeing? And that, folks, I don't think you can blame that on being shell shocked. I don't think you can blame that on Russ. That's preparation. And I know the guy prepares like heck for these games. I know he does a lot of film study, but there's a thing called, what is it? Paralysis by analysis, or is it analysis by paralysis? But it's a situation now where I'm starting to think that he's overthinking things, and that's what's getting him into trouble. So we'll see how he does in the preseason finale, assuming he plays, and hopefully Brian Dable will play all the starters in the preseason finale against the Jets, because they need the work. I want to see them ready for week 1, and I don't think they should rest on their laurels based on, this week 2 performance that they just had. All right, some other concerns. Isaiah Simmons in the slot. Isaiah Simmons versus a smaller, quicker slot receiver. He's not going to win that battle very often. All right, so, unless they let him get physical with the receiver or whatnot, but, we saw him give up the touchdown to a smaller receiver. I'm not convinced that that's really a good role for Isaiah Simmons. Now, Shane Bowen obviously feels otherwise, and I'll defer to him, but I got to see more from him in the slot because it just doesn't look like a natural fit. And I wonder how much of his slot snap was a result of the fact that the Giants were short on slot cornerbacks for this game. Drew Phillips was out. Darnay Holmes, I think, played a little bit. They had some other injuries. I know David Long, who was played in the slot, he was out. Nick McLeod, who was normally placed at the slot, he was playing CB2. So maybe that's why. I don't know, but I was like not very impressed by what I saw from Isaiah Simmons in the slot. All right, a couple more. Micah McFadden in coverage. Can we just all agree that he's a liability? I mean, look, the guy hustles. He's not a bad player, but he's just not. I don't know if it's a lack of athleticism or what it is, but you watch Darius Mawaso, the rookie, and he just looks so much more instinctive and natural in coverage than McFadden does. So to me, I don't know, folks. I'm just not crazy about McFadden in coverage, and I think they're going to try to avoid situations where he's out there on obvious passing downs, but they're going to come. There's going to be times when he's going to be on the field and the other team's going to pass, and I wouldn't blame the other team if they go right at him because he's a liability. Let's call it what it is. All right. The final one, obviously, cornerback 2. Now, this isn't to say that Nick McLeod played badly at cornerback 2, but I remain concerned about the overall depth at cornerback because if there is an injury, who are you going to plug in there? I didn't think Trey Hawkins looked that great. Some of these other guys that they have, Trey Herndon, I haven't been crazy about all, summer long. The Giants are going to have to add there. Now, you probably saw that Stephon Gilmore signed with the Vikings. Giants weren't going to sign Gilmore, not for the price tag that he was looking to get. All right. The Giants at best better hope that somebody shakes loose on the waiver wire, because remember, the Giants are 6th in the waiver order, or B, that they could swing some kind of a trade to get somebody back there. Because this isn't, again, to say that Nick McLeod is a bad option, but you need depth back there. And I just don't know that they have it. And that defensive backfield, particularly the corners, I mean, if the front 7 aren't doing their job and getting the pressure, then that backfield, they're in trouble. So I'm sorry. I know you guys say, oh, you're beating a dead horse there. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying it until it's addressed because that's how I feel. So those are primarily the concerns I have with this team. Now, at some point, I'm going to do a roster projection show for you guys because I know you've asked that. I might even do a live show for that. And, obviously this week we'll just keep chugging right along like we've had. I think the joint practice against the Jets will be interesting. So I'm looking forward to bringing you that podcast as well as all the stuff that we're going to cover here on the Locked On Giants podcast. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time, Giant fans.